Well, the haters gonna hate, and the faker's gonna fake, baby. I'm just gonna making luck, a Dominion podcast.
Yeah, he seems into that.
Yeah, he likes to eat, just like his parents.
Nice.
Eating is actually good for you, so I'm pretty jazzed that he enjoys it.
Yeah, I try to do it whenever I can.
Yeah, and drink water.
Yeah, most people don't drink enough water. That's a fact.
If you're driving right now, first, make sure your seatbelt's buckled. But second, do you have a bottle of water in the car with you?
Yeah, or if you're not driving, too, this is also good advice.
Yeah, like, if you do, take a drink. And take a good drink. Don't take one of those wimpy little sips. Mm-hmm. But if you don't, maybe you should, like, have one of those with you. I think it's a good idea.
I used to use this app called Plant Nanny that gave you this little anthropomorphic, anime plant thing.
Cool.
And you were supposed to tell it whenever you drank water. It was like a little water diary.
Oh, okay.
And you did that by watering your plant. And if you didn't didn't drink enough water, the plant actually died on you.
Wow, that's
yeah,
rough.
though they didn't pull any punches. You had to get a completely different plant.
Did the Grim Reaper come and, like...
No, there was just a dead plant.
Oh, okay, that's really sad, actually.
Yeah, actually, you could pay money to revive your plant. It was a free app, but you could give them money to get the plant back if you killed it.
It
was really weird.
Ingenious, actually.
Yeah, no, I definitely started drinking enough water, but...
Are you sure you did? Because most people don't.
No, but if you download Plant Nanny, maybe you will. I stopped using it and stopped drinking enough water.
Link in the description.
Partially also because I don't have any empathy for fictional characters anymore, but or real ones.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I was gonna. So
and we'll also link to Dasani in the description because that is the superior water. If you're drinking water, you should probably be drinking Dasani.
Yeah, have we gotten a sponsorship yet? I feel
like
we've plugged a lot of products on here.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like this is just an opportunity waiting to happen for all these wonderful companies like Dasani, the choice of a new generation.
Sure.
Welcome to Making Luck, Hydration Podcast.
Yeah, also Dominion. And so last time we did an episode on both Temple and Raider, so we're going to start out by talking a little bit about that kingdom, and then we're going to launch into our episode this time, which is about Megaturns. But before we get to that, I understand Adam is going to have a little bit of an announcement.
Oh, yeah. So in case you've been living under a rock, or you just, haven't, been listening to me, which is probably for the best. Anyway,
it's a different kind of rock to live under. Yeah.
So in 5 days from the day we're recording this, on Saturday, January 12th, 2019, I will be hosting my 10th Dominion tournament with physical cards. It's in Mason, Ohio, which is near Cincinnati. It starts at 1 p.m. There's going to be information in the description about this, or you can go to adamhorton.com. I'll have an announcement about the tournament with all the details, what you need. You don't have to RSVP in order to come, although I am going to have sandwiches for everyone who shows up and plays in the tournament. So if you let me know you're coming, it helps me know how many sandwiches to buy. It's a $5 entry fee. $4 of that goes into the prize pool, which is cash this time. That's a change from last time.
Oh, they agreed to that? That's awesome.
I told them to agree to it because everyone was wanting it because they don't bother to stock Dominion for their Dominion tournaments.
That's too bad.
Like, the shelves are still empty from 3 tournaments ago when I emptied the shelves. But anyway, they're a great venue because they have 1 million tables and they let me do whatever I want. So I'm super happy with it, and you should go. So if you aren't planning on going, plan on going and then go because I put a lot of work into it and people have a good time, and I think you'll have a good time if you go.
Yeah, people travel from pretty long ways away to come to your Dominion tournaments for good reason too. I mean, I'm obviously close enough that I'm gonna be able to come to it, but a lot of people travel quite a bit further and are pretty satisfied with their experience. I think you should come. This is how really I kind of got into Dominion, or Adam's tournaments, and it's just a really fun event to attend and play some quality Dominion with some great kingdoms.
Oh yeah, I've got some people coming in from Chicago area. Got some people coming in from Eastern Pennsylvania. That one's an 8-hour drive.
Yeah.
Hashtag no bigs. So I mean, you should totally go, and I think you'd have a good time.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then one final thing behind you, Jake, on the couch, if you could show the webcam.
Yes.
The winner of the tournament gets the opportunity to play me in a trophy match for this illustrious Scout trophy that A Hoppy made. Shoutouts. It could be your name on that trophy if you win the tournament, but then if you win the trophy match, you get to hang on to that trophy for about 6 months until the next tournament. I am currently 3-1 in trophy matches, so you get your chance to knock me off my high horse.
Yeah, right?
I'm sure everyone is looking forward to that, and
Yeah,
you
I
get
take
to
it
pick
every chance I get. But
you get to pick whatever kingdom you want, and you can go first if you wish to do so. And we basically get to play by whatever rules you want, and see if you can beat me. Good luck with that.
Can they stack it into a multiplayer game if they want to? Can they mandate that this is a 4-player game of Dominion? I got 3 friends.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I haven't thought about that.
Nobody's
That would be
requested
difficult.
it because nobody wants to play multiplayer. Sorry.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to talk about this kingdom that we did last time?
Yeah, so just a reminder, again, last episode was on Temple Raider. We didn't feel the need to only choose one of them just because we didn't feel like they had much to do with each other. So this kingdom had Courtyard, Experiment, Fortune Teller, Duplicate, Marauder, Necromancer, Temple, Festival, Hireling, Raider, and it had the Project Fair. Once more for our audio-only listeners, we had Courtyard, Experiment, Fortune Teller, Duplicate, Marauder, Necromancer, Temple, Festival, Hireling, and Raider. And we had the Project Fair.
So I think what this kingdom was really missing was castles. That way you could have festival, temple, and castles all in the same kingdom.
Yeah.
And if you watch the videos that come with games from this kingdom, you maybe will notice the shout out I gave to the festival, temple, castle theme music from the Super Nintendo game Legend of Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, which is one of my favorite video game themes ever. And that would have been OP on this board.
I didn't get the reference then, and I still don't get it, but maybe you do. Leave in the comments. But, so, about the kingdom, I don't think...
Oh, yeah, the kingdom.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that for the most part, we were both mostly right, but I think we were both wrong about, like, a sliver of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that, I think I may have said that you could get away with skipping Hireling, because there was other draw that was fast enough, and I thought Hireling was going to be too slow, and I was wrong about that. And I believe that you said that Marauder's attack was going to be harmful, right? And that didn't really pan out the way that we expected.
So, let me be a little more specific.
Sure.
Marauder's attack, I think, matters when the opponent is playing big money, which is terrible here, but the bot does it. Hey! And before I knew what I was doing, and before I was getting Marauder in that matchup, I actually did lose a game against a bot. So Marauder is important there, but that's not what I was saying. What I was saying is that I think Marauder is good even in a deck that tries to thin with Temple, and I tried real hard to make that work, and I'm now convinced that that's not good. I don't think Marauder's worth it. I think if Duplicate wasn't here, it might have a chance, but Duplicate is so good, and you definitely want that on your second 4 after you open with a Temple.
So I agree with that. I think that, except that even if Duplicate wasn't here, I might tend away from Marauder just because that junking doesn't really end up mattering much. You end up getting the trash.
On draws.
Yeah, I mean, you end up... Right, so if you might do it tactically if your opponent falls behind on thinning, sure. But...
Or if you like manage to hit 4 early enough, I advocated for a Temple Experiment opening, which I still think is pretty good.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't hit 4 with that. And if you don't hit 4 with that, it's going to be too late for the Marauder.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
But if you have the right situation where it's early enough you get that Marauder before your opponent has gotten thin enough where that doesn't really matter, then there could be a place for a Marauder, except you want Duplicate more because it's way, way better.
Right, so the things that you end up doing here are, like Adam said, opening Temple Experiment. If you get a 5-2, you're just really sad, and you open...
Temple Courtyard.
Temple Courtyard. You could make an argument for Temple Nothing, but I think the Courtyard's a card you want in the deck enough anyway that you take it.
Yeah, it's fine. I think it's better than not getting the Courtyard.
Yeah, no, I'm with that. Like, Courtyard's pretty good here. So, You grab the temple and the experiments. Deciding whether or not to play your experiments was actually kind of interesting on when you draw them in the second
really
shuffle.
easy to shoot yourself in the foot by playing your experiments whenever you see them. So I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
If you have an experiment in your temple hand and you already have an estate to trash, because you're always going to have a copper, basically, you usually don't play it because it's nice to keep around. Yeah.
Hang on to the experiment, and the reason for that is that drawing the experiments later after you've thinned those estates is helping you hit 5 and 6. And those are the price points you really want to be hitting. Like, obviously the duplicate's nice to have before then, but you don't always have it at that time. So, like,
hitting 5 first is still really good, because, like, you're going to be shoving a lot of terminals in the deck, and you're going to want a festival so you can play some of them terminals.
Right. So, like, ideally you've got to duplicate as well, but so that you can be duplicating your 5s and 6s when you do start getting them. But, you know, you probably realistically need to get a festival first for terminal space.
In a lot of cases, I find myself wanting the festival, even if I randomly spike to 6.
Yeah,
which I would still sometimes take the festival over my first hireling, just because I'm so desperate for that terminal space, and I don't want to shove another terminal in the deck, you know?
Yeah, for me it was 50-50. Like, I feel like
50-50.
I felt like I spiked 6 quite often before I had...
will do that.
Right, before I had a festival. And what it came down to for me was how thin I was. So, like, if I was pretty thin to the point that I knew I was going to draw those 2 terminals together, I went ahead and just grabbed the festival because I could play it. But if I was not so thin at the time I spiked 6, I went ahead and took the hireling just... you know, because it wasn't guaranteed to line up with another terminal, and it's a card I want more anyway, so, I don't know. I'm not convinced that was best, but it is what I did, so it's... I mean, in the end, that doesn't matter quite so much, because the DNA of the decks we're talking about is still to be getting lots of festivals and hirelings and duplicates and eventually golds, and you're just kind of building up in ways that are pretty unsurprising, so... you get to this point where you're drawing a bunch and playing a bunch of festivals and a bunch of golds, and you're double provincing, single provincing. Plays out like a pretty standard game of Dominion.
Yeah, just like all the other ones in every single way. A couple of things. First of all, the boy needs to burp, and so he's going to be upset that he's not eating while he burps, which is very important. Wandering Winder had advocated for a Temple Silver opening, and I think that's not crazy. After playing it a lot, I prefer Temple Experiment, but it's pretty easy to get screwed with either draw, and I don't think the silver is that bad.
So Temple Silver, like Adam and Wandering Winder advocated, Adam said, that's not crazy. You do want to get the silver in the deck ASAP. The experiments are really good to have because of your priority of lining up Temple with Copper Estate. Like, that's really the main driver as to why you get the experiment over the silver in the opening, but having the silver in the opening is helping you hit 5 to get that festival sooner, and then from there you get your duplicates and your hirelings, etc., and you can always thin later. There's no drive to get thin really fast. You will get thin eventually. So, yeah, at every phase of the game, taking experiment instead of silver was an interesting decision, because there was always a point where you felt like you wanted the silver in the deck, but the experiments were helping you more with your immediate goals.
I think I lean a little bit farther away from silver than you do, but I mean, silver's not crazy in a lot of situations. If you can just get festivals instead, obviously you're going to be a lot better off. But sometimes you don't have 5 and you need money, and so silver's there for you, man.
Yeah, right. And, I mean, usually when we're talking about taking silver, we're talking about near the beginning when you're having trouble getting cards like Festival and Hireling just to get started. So, yeah, the Temple points were... Oh, by the way, Raider was garbage. Don't get it here.
Raider's good against big money because it says attack on it, but otherwise it's garbage. So the Temple points.
The Temple points, I think I said you pretty much ignore them completely here, and the Temple, like usual, is just about the thinning. And I think that was true for the most part. But that,
except for when you don't ignore the Temple points.
Right. It's interesting, and I'm going to say something really unhelpful here. It was true until it wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
Like, the Temple points were certainly something you could ignore for the most part, but when your opponent has, 8 of them, that if their deck is significantly worse, that might not be a huge deal if they got, 8 Temple points on you, so, because, they can afford to lose a province on you, so... It was interesting. I mean, the temple points for the most part weren't a huge consideration, but if there were 5 on the pile, you at
five
least
or
thought
more.
about it. Yeah,
5 or more, I started to think seriously about it. Like, it would be really difficult for me to pick it up over a festival that I needed or a hireling that I could duplicate or something like that.
Yeah.
Unless there were significantly more points on the pile, but then they would be gone. But if I had 4 or maybe 5 and I wasn't desperate for terminal space, give me some of them delicious temple points. It's really nice to have those VP tokens in the mid game, because every once in a while, if the piles get low enough, you can put yourself into a situation where you threaten to win the game on your next turn if your opponent doesn't green. Maybe they didn't want to do that.
Well, that's possible. I think more often is the case with the temple points on this board is that the temple points matter in intervals of 6 or possibly 3 if you're talking about duchy scoring, just because the game is
intervals of 55.
Yeah, right. I mean, what helps the temple in the mid game to end game, like you're saying, is that necromancer is here, and so picking up a necromancer means that you can zombie apprentice your extra temples for some extra reliability, or do the smart thing,
or do the cool trick,
which is
you can top deck your temple with
courtyard
and play zombie mason, and you can gain a 5. And you can get
festival,
a duchy if it's late enough, or maybe you can get a festival, or you can gain something else, I guess. If you're running piles, you can gain up to a zombie mason, which is pretty decent.
Yeah, which is pretty decent. Yeah,
it's pretty decent.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. So hirelings, I think usually we're gonna pile. Maybe there was one left.
They were gonna get low for sure. I mean,
yeah,
I want usually 3 or 4 of them, and maybe sometimes more. I don't know.
I usually had 5 out by the end of the game.
55,
but I may have overbuilt a little bit in those.
It depends on a lot.
Yeah. So anyway, which I guess enough about that kingdom. You can watch the games play out. They were a pretty par for the course game in Dominion.
There were some pretty interesting end game situations in those games of Dominion.
Yeah.
And speaking of end games,
yeah. So I said this is going to be about Megaturns, but this is kind of a continuation of the previous video we did, which was on end game play. If you remember when we started that.
Those were good times, weren't they, partner?
Yeah. If you remember, when we did that episode, we started out by saying endgame play is really complex and nuanced, and we could do multiple videos and not cover all of it, so we're probably going to do another video that covers something else, and
there
that's...
are at least 2 more of them coming that have been unpublished minisodes on endgame play, and this isn't the last one we're going to do.
Right, but this is an episode on endgame play that is going to be focused around what the term you're going to hear thrown around, megaturns.
Yeah, so I think we're going to be focused on when you build much more to the point of a megaturn, but what does megaturn really mean?
It's really interesting. If you ask me the question, what is a megaturn, I'm going to ignore it and move on, because it's difficult to answer.
It's totally subjective and fuzzy, and
what's a lot easier to do is talk about what a megaturn isn't and then frame it from there, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Proof by contradiction or negative definite. Go ahead.
Sure. So, in Dominion Endgame, there are basically these 2 kinds of scoring. These 2 kinds of scoring phases. The extreme end of one is a megaturn, and we're going to come back to that. But let's talk about the other kind, which is this tug-of-war scoring, I call it. There's no good name for it, but you and your opponent are both just kind of... things that aren't a megaturn, you see these games of Dominion where you and your opponent kind of go back and forth scoring points. I get a province and then you get a province and then I get a province and you get one, or whatever we're doing to score. And then eventually the game is over because somebody got the last province, or one of you died, or 3 supply piles ran out, something like that happened. But the important thing here is that we're talking about this prolonged phase of scoring that takes place over multiple turns. That has some pretty important characteristics. It means that you are going to have VP cards in your deck, probably, and which means that you're going to draw them.
Yeah, you're going to draw those VP cards. That's the big thing.
So the concept of your payload is important, but also the concept of your deck's viability, while it has points in it, is important. You'll hear this turn choking on green cards.
Yeah.
And if your deck is doing that, or if you have hedges against it, that becomes important in this quote-unquote tug-of-war scoring. Similarly, By the same token, we see points that don't make your deck worse. Things like VP chips, things like distant lands, things like orchard, stuff like that. Those, as sources of points, become more valuable.
They do, but I also think that, those aren't Megaturn cards, right? I mean, I
Right.
don't think of the best turn in Dominion that I ever had as being, I played 8 distant lands and then they were on my tavern mat. Huh!
Right, that's not the best single turn.
Yeah.
For sure. That puts you in a great position, sure.
But, that kind of stuff does get better in the same types of situations.
Yeah, right. We're talking about this prolonged scoring that the phase of you and your opponent both directly making progress toward winning is taking course over multiple turns.
And that's not a Megaturn. Yeah.
Right. The extreme end of this, the absolute extreme end, is the canonical, vanilla money single game, where you're just getting provinces, and maybe you do some duchy dancing in the middle when there are only 2 provinces left. Okay.
Right.
So we've talked about what the Megaturn isn't. Now let's talk about the extreme end of what a Megaturn is, and that's where you have this one turn where you get all your points, or you have done no greening, nothing to make your deck worse or compromise it in any way, and all of a sudden you have one turn that just ends the game and does all your scoring for you in one fell swoop. And that's like a full Megaturn or a true Megaturn, and that's the other extreme end of what we'd be talking about.
# true Megaturn.
Right.
Yeah. So, if I'm gonna try and quantify this, which I don't want to focus too much on, but if we're looking at less than 4 provinces a turn, I don't think that's really what we're trying to focus on here. Sure, you can do a calculation where it's oh, I can make 1 province now, but can I build to 2? Or I can make 2, or can I build to 3? You can do a calculation on that, and I'll give you the 5-second version. Figure out how long it takes to build to that thing, and then see where you are versus if you started greening now in terms of how many turns away you think the game might last, and then figure out which one puts you better off. I mean, there's actually a mini-sode that addresses this topic that hasn't been published yet, so I don't want to step on it, but I'll refer you to the future mini-sode of this podcast that addresses that topic in a lot of detail. Wandering Winder did a good job. I listened to it today for the first time, actually. So if you want to hear that, let us know, and we can prioritize that, and we can publish that as the next mini-sode. We do, obviously. Leave a comment section, adamhorton.com, etc. But that's sort of away from what we're talking about. We're looking at 4 provinces minimum in terms of points, or maybe some similar type of effect that has that bypasses this tug of war that Jake was talking about.
And conceptually, I think it's important to understand which kind of scoring you're looking at in your particular game, because we talked about the characteristics of a tug-of-war game, but there are some other ones of a Megaturn game. The concept of keeping your deck viable with points in it goes out the window. You don't care about it anymore because you're not going to have a phase of the game where you have points in your deck. It's going to be over.
It's hard. I don't want to draw victory point cards.
No, right.
So don't.
Yeah, and these cards these sources of points that don't make your deck worse don't necessarily become bad per se, but they become a lot less valuable. So if we are looking at a game that is all about getting bridge trolls in play and making provinces cost very little, if not 0, and then draining provinces that way, you're building that deck, and you can put a groundskeeper in it. Well, you're not going to say no to a free groundskeeper, sure.
Who would ever say no to a free groundskeeper?
Nobody. But you're also probably not going to spend time going for a groundskeeper or putting one in the deck when it could have been a bridge troll or a village to help you play a bridge troll. Because the advantage of something like a groundskeeper is that it's a source of points that doesn't make your deck any worse, but that doesn't really matter if the game is more Megaturnish, so that you don't really care about points making your deck worse, because they're not going to be in your deck.
Right. So, I mean, we're talking about we don't want to have points in our deck because we're ending the game. And that takes effort to do. We're talking about, one of the things you mentioned was a deck that can't handle the green cards, or maybe is built not to handle the green card, whether you chose not to do it or because the resources for that weren't available. Let me just say that just because you can build a deck that can't handle green cards doesn't mean you should do that. Because you have to be able to have this Megaturn. If you can't handle green cards and you can't produce this Megaturn, then what you're building is what I'd like to call a bad deck. And don't do that, okay? You need to be able to have the Megaturn in order to justify building a deck that doesn't handle the green cards. That's important.
Sure, and another insight you can take from this is that these Megaturn decks that are really focused on building up and then exploding in one fell swoop, that even if it destroys itself, the deck, even if it just completely shatters in the process, it wins the game. Those decks are really inflexible for the most part. A lot of the... Now, don't get me wrong, we're going to get into some characteristics that make that a little bit grayish, but if you commit to building this Megaturn deck, a lot of the time you kind of just need to stick with that conviction and go whole hog, and maybe not pivot.
Parker is currently chewing on his giraffe.
Yeah.
Just thought you should know that. The webcam video is... I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anyway, you have to build towards this big turn, right?
Yeah.
And that can be hard because a lot of types of payload out there that can scale up to getting this many points or this many provinces involve putting stop cards in your deck.
Yeah, I'd say most of them do.
Gold is a stop card, and you're going to need a lot of golds to get that many provinces.
Sure.
And you're going to have to draw those golds, and you have to buy the cards to draw the golds, and you have to buy the golds, and, like, man, that takes a long time. And even if you are able to do that, like, you're still, I mean, at a certain point, your deck has more stop cards in it than 5, and so your chances of dudding will increase even if you can draw everything. So, like, your deck is still getting less consistent.
Right. If you have a bunch of wharves and a bunch of villages in the deck, eventually you're going to draw a hand of like all wharves and no villages or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps wharf being a duration draw card was not. So pretend that we said
smoothie.
I'm not going to edit that out or anything. Maybe I will, but anyway, you have to spend a lot of time doing that, and how much better is that than just dealing with the green cards, right? So if you do have these resources, you still have to. These are factors that would push you away from building towards that because you don't have the payload to justify it. And really, I think it comes down to the payload when we're talking about Megaturns, yeah?
Definitely, and certain kinds of payload are going to push you toward a Megaturn more than others. In particular, whenever you see cost reduction, anything that says cards cost X amount less.
Except for Canal.
Except for Canal.
Rip Canal, we hardly knew you.
Yeah, well, except for Canal.
Soon.
Yeah, so anything that says cost reduction on it should be at least signaling in your mind maybe Megaturn, especially if you've got some kind of gain attached. Like Bridge.
For sure.
Bridge and Bridge Troll are the two huge culprits because they have the cost reduction and they have plus buy on them. So like immediately if you can put multiple of those in play, then immediately signals to you might be able to do a Megaturn.
Sure. Inventor says hi, but yes, I agree with that point.
I'm glad you brought up Inventor. That's one I want to come back to as well.
All right, we'll come back to Inventor, but yeah, I think cost reduction is the big one.
Yeah.
Right, because cost reduction decks, I mean, I think the easy comparison to make is let's take Bridge.
Yeah.
Let's say I play 3 bridges. Just think of the things you can do with 3 bridges in play.
Yeah,
versus the things you can do with 5 bridges, 6 bridges, 7 bridges. If I play 7 bridges, I'm going to win the game. I can get all the provinces pretty much from that.
Yeah, and that gets us into the things that you're thinking about when you're looking at a Megaturn board. So we talked about when you're in this tug of war scoring, you think about things like deck viability and stuff like that. You don't really care about that in a Megaturn deck, so what do you care about instead? And I think it's the spuzz.
The spuzz.
Speed, splits, and first player. The things that you care about when you're looking at a Megaturn type of board with usually it's cost reduction, then you're looking at key splits that you may need to win, assuming you're going to be mirrored, right? So like you talked about the difference between having 5 bridges in play versus 3. I mean, if there's empty, there's also a huge difference between having 6 bridges in play and only being able to play 4.
For sure. So, like, in mirrors, things get weird. I think this statement about cost reduction is something we can say about mirrors in these types of games, and it's because of that. But that's a product of it being a mirror. Strategically, when I'm looking at the start of a game, in a 2-player game at least,
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, what deck do I want to build? And usually I want to do that thinking that I'm uncontested, so I don't have to worry about it, and all I have to do is think, oh, cost reduction, how many bridges can me play in one turn? And then just decide to build that deck. In a 3-player game, you have to have more skill and things get more complicated. JK.
Well, yeah, that's very different.
Well, I mean, that's a different thing, and it's not really the scope of this podcast. Parker's getting upset just with us talking about 3-player games, so I apologize, little guy.
He doesn't like it.
He, ate the wrong part of his pacifier. That couldn't have been comfortable.
No.
So anyway, when I'm just talking about strategic things, cost reduction is the big one.
Sure.
We can list a few different types of cards that can lead us to a Megaturn as well. If I'm going to look for examples, I'm thinking King's Court.
Sure, yeah, King's Court too, because of its explosiveness. The King's Court's an interesting one because it's also so good in boards that are not Megaturns. That,
Right.
Yeah, it kind of produces Megaturns by virtue of how explosive it is, but it's also really good after the fact.
Parker's excited about King's Court.
Yeah, the other kinds of cards that might push you there are things like Tragic Hero and Horn of Plenty. Things that do a really good thing one time, and then they're gone.
Okay, so Horn of Plenty is its own special case.
Yeah.
Why don't we just talk about Horn of Plenty now?
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's totally
So Horn of Plenty is something that naturally leads itself towards Megaturns, and I think that's because, well, first of all, it can gain provinces.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. But before it gains a province, it's still a stop card in your deck. And so by deciding to blow it up and change it into a province, you're not really making your deck worse in terms of drawing itself. What you're doing is you're giving up the opportunity to put more components in your deck, usually like deck control components or maybe more Horns of Plenty.
Sure.
You're giving up that opportunity, meaning, okay, I'm done building, and so now I can green, and at that point, oh, look, well, golly gee, if I've optimized this, I'm getting 5 to 6 provinces, or maybe even more. So
Maybe
that's just something
8,
that natural, or maybe 12. Okay, that's going to be tough.
That's not happening.
Well,
But
I mean,
yeah,
it could, but that's going to be really tough.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, Horn of Plenty, just because of the nature of the card, it leads itself to Megaturns, and so if you have the draw to support that, sure, go for it. That's going to be really good for you. Megaturn. Hashtag Megaturn. We did it.
Yeah, the big thing about Horn of Plenty, too, is that it's non-terminal, so, a lot of the time it's going to push itself towards Megaturns because all you have to do is be able to draw it. You don't have to be able to draw it and then have actions to play it. But
Yeah, it's just one less enabler that it needs.
yeah, so the thing that I want to come back to is the speed and splits. So
Oh, yeah, the Spuzz.
the Spuzz. And the first player was kind of a joke, but this assumes in a mirror and all else being equal, yeah, the Megaturns kind of reward you for having gone first, just because you get
I
to fire a
suppose.
little faster.
I suppose. I mean...
But the serious points, the
Okay.
speed and the splits.
Yeah, sure. So we talked a little bit about splits. So speed?
Yeah,
What do you mean by that?
So speed is just this concept of needing to fire as quickly as you can. These Megaturns, they obviously take some time to set up. I mean, if a Megaturn is good on that board, it's because you could set it up in time to win the game with it. And especially in a mirror, because in a mirror you're racing to be able to do it first, because one of you is going to fire and get all of the viable VP out of the supply before the other one can really do that to catch up. So you see things like I came back to the Groundskeeper Bridge Troll thing. Again, you're not going to say no to a free Groundskeeper in a Bridge Troll game, but the question becomes, do you have time?
Well, if
To
I'm
get a
aiming
Groundskeeper.
to build a deck that tries to get provinces, and the provinces are gone by the time I'm ready to get provinces, then I'm going to be pretty sad, because now I have to settle for all these duchies when maybe I could have had provinces instead, because everything costs 0 or costs close enough to 0.
Yeah.
I can do that.
And you'll notice that one of the terms that I keep using with your win condition in a Megaturn deck is viable VP, because certain kinds of payload really want to be gaining provinces or higher but do not like gaining duchies. Like the Horn of Plenty, if you have to pop your Horn of Plenty to gain a duchy, you're in really bad shape.
You're shedding at least 1 manly tier when you do that.
Yeah,
At least.
for sure. So,
Probably much more.
So-
Per duchy.
Yeah, definitely. So your win condition on a Megaturn board, if you're mirrored, a lot of the time is not get all 8 provinces, it's get 5. Because, once you do that, your opponent has this situation where they're in a tough spot because they built this deck that's really good at getting provinces, and now they have to, and hosting provinces, and now they have to do something else.
Yeah, that's no fun, man. I want provinces.
Yeah, and I think that it's worth making at least one other point on the splits thing. So when we're talking about the splits that matter in a Megaturn board, it's not necessarily the payload, right? Like if we're talking about a bridge troll Megaturn, it's not necessarily the bridge trolls or the bridges that you care about the split with. It's whatever is going to help you play more of them. So like if we're talking about a kingdom that has bridge and throne room or something like that, the bridge split is not so important as the thing that is helping you play the bridges. So like maybe it's Lost Cities or Labs or whatever, and that's the important split. But identify which one it is and go for that, but understand it's not always the payload.
Okay, that's good. With Throne Room's flexible enough you can use it as deck control or payload,
Sure.
whatever you're short on. But in the absence of a flexible card, you have to figure out, oh, well, if I have one stack of villages and my bridges are terminal and I only have Smithy for draw, well, hey, guess what? Village is the critical point here, right?
Yeah, or like, but sometimes it is the payload. Like highway Megaturns, usually it's the highway split that matters. But
Right.
then, like, if you're looking at Royal Carriage Bridge, it's definitely the Royal Carriage split that matters.
That's the village, yeah.
You get a bridge, and then you care about the Royal Carriage split from there.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So, in terms of these Megaturns that aim for provinces, I guess there are a couple more examples. Like, I think Governor was something that does that.
Yeah.
Produces turns of, many provinces.
It can, and that's really the interesting part of Governor, is that one of the big points I think we need to make about these Megaturns is, versus this tug of war scoring we mentioned earlier, is it's not black and white. And Governor is a card that is necessarily gray. These, like we talked about.
I was thinking like racial equality, and it's like, it doesn't matter the color of your skin, it matters, and then Governor's like gray, and I'm thinking he's old. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, he's translucent. Yeah, so Governor is a really interesting card, and all of these are to a degree. Governor is just the best example because you want to refer back to our Governor episode in this because we go into much more detail.
Yeah.
But Governor can produce these turns where you are gaining 4+ provinces, but a lot of the time it's also pushing you toward this tug of war scoring, and all of them are to a degree. We looked at that bridge troll situation earlier, and if you're not being mirrored, you might just have the luxury of building up these bridge trolls until you can get all of the available remaining provinces. But if your opponent is mirroring you at the same time, you might fire early, quote unquote, and just settle for some 2 or 3 provinces turns so that you don't lose to that 5 province win condition later on.
Yeah, the mini Megaturn, as it were. Like if your deck can handle a little bit of green but can't buy it all at once, I guess you could still build that deck, but then have that kind of payload instead if that's going to serve you better. I think Horn of Plenty is a good example of that.
It's a really weird one for sure.
Because if you've got like some kind of like a warehouse on the board, I can only get so many cards in my hand, but it doesn't. I can get whichever stop cards I want, so I could just convert half of my horns this turn and then the other half next turn, and maybe that's fine.
Yeah, so like that's also assuming that you can actually close the game out that way. Like I have made mistakes on a Horn of Plenty board where I'm
getting 6 provinces. GG.
Yeah, or like I got 5 or 6 provinces, but then like my deck didn't do anything from there, and I couldn't make good on the threat to end the game because horns were my only payload, and now they're gone.
Rip-a-rooney.
And then my opponent was able to get the last 2 plus all the duchies they needed. So like these are some more practical considerations for your Megaturn. And even in like tug of war scoring, you might have this situation where you've been going province for province up until now, but now there's only 2 left, and you have this decision. I can like get the second to last one or third to last one or whatever, or I can just put more payload in the deck and maybe threaten a double province later. I don't think many people would call that a Megaturn, but it's more Megaturn-y than anything the game had seen thus far. So,
well, I mean, it's all a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you pointed out the extreme example of like big money with one province maybe every turn or some turn, and then like the other extreme end of the spectrum, which Parker's clearly excited about, where you gain all of the provinces in one turn. Rah!
Exactly.
And then like, so you're just pushing yourself towards the building more end of that spectrum. I mean, this spectrum is, it's a Dominion spectrum. Really, everything in Dominion is a spectrum when you think about it really hard.
Or life.
Actually,
even.
yeah, everything in life is actually a spectrum now that I think about it.
Degrees.
This
depends.
podcast, you, the listener,
you're a spectrum.
if you're driving, the angle that you have the steering wheel,
that's a spectrum.
it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
Please be mindful of that spectrum. And
people have been
make sure
telling
you
me
have
that
your
I'm on a
seatbelt
spectrum my entire life. And so the idea here...
Oh,
So,
you got me. That's good. That was really good.
Yeah, so, but the point of this, what we want you to take away certainly isn't that you're going to take these games of Dominion and put them into little filing cabinets when you get home. Put them into like little, this was a Megaturn and this was Tug of War scoring. The point is that you are not playing a Megaturn because of the board. You are not playing Tug of War because of the board. You are playing your game of Dominion, and you need to be reacting to what the opponent is doing. Against a bot, pure Megaturns are going to happen pretty often. Pure Tug of War is going to happen pretty often. But against a human opponent who is building their own deck and maybe mirroring you or maybe not...
Or maybe reacting to what you're doing and is
yes,
smart...
You need to be a little more tactical and reactive and understand that these kinds of Megaturn versus Tug of War scoring, this is there's a gradient, and you can be following along in any way that you want. Just think about what's viable for you right now.
Yeah, so like there's a point on the gradient that we kind of arbitrarily said, like, oh, well, you're going to... I mean, I tried to quantify it, which wasn't the point, but hey, I mean, we were going to get that question, I did it anyway.
Right.
So like there's a point on there that's like, oh, more than 3 provinces or whatever. I'm going to build more than what I can now. Right? And what are the things... We've talked about some of the things that can push you towards I want to build more versus I want to build less. We've talked about things that aim for provinces and put you away from that Tug of War scoring paradigm. But where, there's the other side of this coin of like, oh, there's Megaturns in terms of turns where you accomplish a lot of things.
Yes.
And you have to build more to have these turns where you accomplish a lot of things.
Yeah, I think one key difference is when we're talking about what we're calling a Megaturn or what it does for you is whether or not that Megaturn relies on taking points out of the supply. Now, why is that important? Well, if I have a Megaturn that's gaining 5 to 6 provinces, that was almost undoubtedly a Megaturn. My opponent can't respond by doing the same thing.
They can't get 5 to 6 provinces after you do that, yeah.
Those are gone. They're not there. Whereas there are other kinds of things that you might call a Megaturn. Like if I buy 5 conquests or whatever, I got 1 billion points. Or, I had like 6 goons in play and I bought 6 coppers because that was the best card I could buy. And whatever. And I just got
you got like 40 points.
Yeah, I got 1 bazillion points in my... The key... Or a giant triumph or something like that.
Yeah.
The difference there is that the opponent can respond theoretically by doing the same thing, right? That's kind of a Megaturn, but like if the opponent is then able to theoretically replicate it and come back with that, then
you don't auto win and you have to play more.
Yeah, and it wasn't a Megaturn at that point because they did the same thing, and it turns into Tug of War scoring because you're tugging back, you're making really big tugs.
Oh, okay. So, like, in terms of defining Megaturn as being, like, I did the biggest thing in this game and you can't do it, nanner, nanner, boo-boo, stick your head in doo-doo, wash out with bubblegum and stick it in again, then yes, that's not a Megaturn if you're going to play Goons or a Merchant Guild or a Groundskeeper or something along those lines.
Right.
So, from a tactical standpoint, that wasn't a Megaturn. However, when I'm looking at the kingdom before the game starts and I see these cards, I still want to build towards doing that amazing thing.
Yeah, so, exactly. If I have this turn where I play 4 bishops to trash 4 golds or fortresses or whatever, I got a bunch of points, and now, to respond to that, you may be able to do exactly the same thing, and we'll go back and forth, but I did make you do that.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't been able to do that...
You didn't want to do that, Sucks to be you, man.
Well,
you're doing it anyway.
Yeah, or you're just losing. Is
or
what
you
I'm
can lose.
is what I'm hoping happens. Is that so? Like that's the thing. Is that like it can be a mega turn in that you were able to accomplish that, and now they have to respond in kind. But can they? Were they mirroring you to the point that did they build that deck too, or were they going for something else?
Or were they just doing everything you did 2 turns later and just hoping that you were smart enough to have it come together and then, oh, look what I can do, but I only have 3 fortresses and you have 7 of them.
Right.
Well, not that that's ever happened to me before.
Speed and splits.
Hey, well,
but,
hey, look at that. The Spurs came back for us. So these are things you can think about before the game even starts. And if I'm going to look for a couple more cards that can push me towards that direction, I would say Conspirator is something. I mean, maybe you're not going to get to this same magnitude, but the fact that it's cheap and gives you deck control and payload, that means you can just shove a bunch of these in the deck and easily build to, I'll get 1 more province in a turn because maybe at the end of that I'll be in the same spot and have more conspirators in my deck or something like that. So Conspirator helps you do that. Or I guess the other big example on my mind was Quarry.
Yeah.
Because that makes it real easy to buy more action cards, which can help you, do bigger turns in the future.
Yeah.
But it's not really good at buying VP, so you're going to find yourself more often in the situation where, I'm just going to get a whole bunch of stuff, so of course I'm going to build more because it's very easy to do that.
Yeah, other cards that might push you toward a Megaturn are, again, cards that have this really explosive effect, but then they can't do it anymore. So, Counterfeit is interesting to talk about because the usual function of Counterfeit is to trash cards you don't want, right? But Counterfeit has this other thing it does that is kind of more like Payload, where you can be doing things like counterfeiting golds or platinums or maybe you're counterfeiting spoils, or if you're really feeling
I'm feeling frisky.
The sax music, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
You could maybe be counterfeiting capitals.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh,
yeah.
I need a cigarette.
But, like, the thing is that,
Candy cigarette. Smoking is gross. Anyway, continue.
But the point is there that once you've done that, it's been done. That payload has left your deck.
Rip that payload.
And so that's kind of... I think when we were talking to Wandering Winter about this, he said, well, what's a Megaturn? It's something that I do once and then I can't repeat. And that's kind of a good definition. Like,
that's just as good as any of the other 5 that we've said.
Another thing that kind of pushes you there is, I think, Tragic Hero. Especially Tragic Hero with, like, a Throne Room variant, like King's Court or something. Where you're getting to play the Tragic Hero to draw your deck and then gain treasures, which you then draw off subsequent Tragic Hero plays. And that's great, because you have this giant turn with a bunch of money, bunch of buys, but then the Tragic Hero has left your deck, tragically.
Yes. Yeah. A moment of silence for poor Harambe.
So yeah, those are some cards.
You can, like, save up your Royal Carriages. Or,
Hermit Madman.
Oh yeah, that combo deck. That could be described as a Megaturn. It was real big. We did it, guys. We played a bunch of golds and had a big turn. We did it, or like blowing up all your mining villages on the last turn of the game.
Sure.
I mean, that's another thing that's kind of a Megaturn. But like, I mean, am I gonna think about this before the game starts? Probably not. It's gonna be. I'm going to be putting these cards in my deck because they're good, and then if the game situation turns into something where that's good for me, then maybe that's what I'll be doing with my life.
Definitely. Now, one thing I wanted to come back to, you mentioned Inventor. Inventor is really interesting.
Inventoroni.
It's got cost reduction, and it's got a gain on it,
that's
like
so
Bridge.
Good.
But the gain can't be used after the cost reduction of subsequent plays.
Ripperoo.
Which is really weird. So it's like a workshop variant that has cost reduction on it. So can it be used? Is it a Megaturn card?
Sure.
The answer, it certainly can
I've
be.
done it.
Yeah, I have too.
It was so good.
But it's harder, but it's better for other things, I think. Like, it being a workshop is really powerful.
Yeah.
I think it's like better than Bridge at doing regular payload things, and way worse at Bridge than Bridge at doing the Megaturn thing.
Yeah, like, you just have to look in and see, what do I get for playing 3 Inventors versus what do I get for playing 5 Inventors?
And it's a huge difference.
Versus 7 or 9. Like, where are those cutoff points? Where am I getting the most value? And how far along that do I go? Versus maybe I just do something else.
And I'm just going to tell you from experience here, on boards where you might be uttering the phrase Inventor Megaturn. The Inventor split is a gigantic deal. Like, getting 6 Inventors is usually GG, unless there's some other form of explosive payload, because there's a, like Adam just mentioned, there is a huge difference between having 4 Inventors and having 6 of them.
Yeah.
In terms of, well, just think about the cards you're gaining.
Province?
Yeah.
Those are really good for winning.
Yeah.
The upper doodles.
Totes.
So, did you have anything else before we move on?
No. If we want to just review the key takeaways here, it's we talked about Megaturn scoring and gradual scoring, the extremes of them and what they look like. Those two things have different characteristics and have different priorities for you in terms of how you're building your deck and which cards you want to focus on, splits, deck viability, stuff like that. Which kind of scoring you find yourself focusing on is not tied to the kingdom, it's tied to the game and you reacting to it.
Just like everything in Dominion, really.
Exactly. Just like everything in Dominion. Make sure you're thinking about it mid-game, not just at the beginning. And be aware of what your role in the game is and what kind of end game you want to be playing to. And also make sure you're drinking enough water. Most people don't do that.
Yeah, and remember, Dasani is the superior water. Oh, there was one more thing about Megaturns. One more reason you would want to go for a Megaturn that I forgot to mention.
What is that?
Because it's really cool!
Yeah, they're fun. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, all the cool stories of Megaturns you have to, or of Dominion things you have to tell, they're all of Megaturns, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
There have been 2 times in my life, Jake, where I have completed my action phase and said, okay, this stack of provinces, I'm going to pick it up and they're all mine. I don't yet know how many are in the stack, but I know that they're all mine. And then counting them to see how many duchies I can get along with it, right?
Sure.
2 times that's happened, and I gotta tell you, it felt so good, Jake.
This is true.
That feeling of just physically picking up that pile.
Yeah, that is a legitimate point because, like, if you are one of those people who is just looking to design a really fun kingdom for you and your friends to play,
If you're a Johnny,
then just throw a Megaturn deck board together. If you're one of those people, like, if you're trying to show your friends what Dominion can be, and they're not really sold on it yet, shove them at a Megaturn board and show them what's possible. And then that'll hopefully get their gears turning.
it'll get the juices flowing.
The juices gearing.
Yep, the gears flowing.
The gears juicing.
The juices.
Parker juiced. Okay.
So yeah, we have a kingdom.
Yeah.
Has some cards in it, and maybe we'll talk about it since everything in Dominion, should be considered with the context of a kingdom and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are the cards in this one?
I'll read them to you.
That'd be good.
Moat, Native Village, Bridge, Bureaucrat, Ironworks, Mountain Village, Crown, Crypt, Haunted Woods, Expand, and we have Dominate and Fountain. Once more, for our audio-only listeners, Moat, Native Village, Bridge, Bureaucrat, Ironworks, Mountain Village, Crown, Crypt, Haunted Woods, Expand, and we have Dominate and Fountain.
This is really interesting. You've got some
Crunchy, man.
You've got some weird decisions to make here, and I do want to say that the presence of Bridge and Dominate in the same kingdom immediately is making me scratch my head because those are both things you
Because
almost
you have
always
lice. Or no, yeah.
right and lice, and also these are things you both almost always go for, but they're really bad at helping each other like get to
Yeah,
it.
they don't play nice together, do they?
Yeah, the Bridge is a copper if you're trying to dominate, right? If your goal is to just...
A bridge is a bridge, but it doesn't reduce the cost of dominating.
Yeah, no, like, for the effect of getting a dominate, the Bridge is not more helpful than a copper.
It's like an abandoned mine.
In fact, yeah, it's a terminal copper if you're trying to dominate. Of course, that's not the case because it's a bridge. But it's weird. So, like, are you going to dominate in this game?
I don't know, man. It kind of depends on what my opponent does. But I can tell you about the deck that I want to build.
Okay,
and it's going to be able to do a lot of cool stuff. Because look at all the things you can do by playing a lot of bridges.
Yeah, right. So, like, that's not the only thing Bridge can do. There's also Ironworks it combos with.
And Native Village. Remember the old school Native Village
Yeah.
Bridge deck? Did you ever played any Native Village Bridge games?
I have played Native Village Bridge, and it is a deck that works. It's not It's underwhelming though.
Yeah.
Like that deck is weird to pilot, and it's really stressful because it's so inflexible.
Yeah, and sometimes you can get kind of boned.
Yeah, definitely.
Which
So
is unfortunate.
Man, so like you try to answer the question, what splits are important here? There's 2 stacks of villages, so you're not going to get villaged out. Oh, there's also Crown, which is probably the best village here, I want to say. Yeah. So you've got these 3 stacks of villages, so that split's not going to be huge. The bridge split, I want to say, is going to be big, but if you do lose the bridge split to the point that you can't province excessively with it, you could always start building toward dominate instead.
Sure, the draw resources on this board are pretty decent. I mean, Haunted Woods by itself, with nothing else, is a card that makes me want to build more.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, Haunted Woods is a big deal.
That attack hurts, too, here.
But there's Moat.
Oh, man, maybe you could native village... That's not gonna... Native village the green cards, that doesn't work. Anyway.
Yeah, Haunted Woods is, it's the strongest source of draw here.
Yeah.
What I'm really looking at is, since I want to build a lot, I'm looking at thinning, obviously, and I have Expand as the only way to trash cards, but there's Crypt, and then there's Fountain, which can theoretically incentivize me for keeping the coppers around and crypting them. And I have strong enough draw with Haunted Woods that maybe I'll be able to set something like that up. So I am tempted by that.
Well, the other thing about Crypt is that you're going to want crowns in the deck, too, so like you can crypt your crowns as well.
You can. I imagine that I would probably crypt, like, a crown.
Yeah, I mean...
because then I can just draw it next turn, right? But I don't necessarily think I want to have those crowns out of my deck. Actually, there might be a little rule snafu. So what if I crown a Haunted Woods, and then in my night phase I play a Crypt and put the crown back? So that's a way to get the crown back in my deck. I think I still double the draw from Haunted Woods, but now there's a tracking issue. So we'll look into the rules clarification for that.
Somebody clarify that for us.
I mean, I'll look it up, and I'm pretty sure that's how it works. You still get the doubled Haunted Woods. You just have to remember that you get it, and then you can crown a Haunted Woods and then put the crown back in your deck.
Sure.
With the crypts.
Yeah.
So maybe I would consider doing that. I might run like 1 or 2 crypts in the deck. I think I get an Expand because it's the only way to get rid of the states, and like the fibers are great.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, if you decide you don't care about the fountain points, the only way to thin the coppers, quote-unquote thin the coppers, is to expand them into something like Mountain Village, or if you've got a lot of terminal space Moat.
Yeah, you can play a bridge and then play your Expand, and expand your coppers into something that is not a stop card.
Yeah, so... what are your... So I'm not exactly sure what kind of deck you end up building here. Like you said, it's going to depend a lot on the opponent. I want to say that at first I'm going to try to act as if I'm trying to build this Bridge Megaturn deck and see how my opponent reacts to that. If I get to the point where I have enough bridges that I could crown them into a Megaturn, I'm probably going to say I don't care about Dominate and... try to win the game by crowning bridges and emptying all of them in succession.
I think this is a game where before playing the game and before getting into a situation, I can't tell you if I'm going to have that type of Megaturn you were describing.
Now, yeah.
Because there are a lot of points you can get from other places. It really depends on how I can end the game.
Exactly.
Right?
If my opponent contests the bridges and crowns, it might be good to pivot away from that strategy and start focusing instead on draw and payload to the point that maybe I could dominate, or maybe I am expanding fibers into provinces. I don't know.
I mean, you want to focus down provinces if you're threatened by a big turn, or you want to try and outscore it. And there are options for doing both of those, and which one is viable depends a lot on things that I couldn't tell you because we're not playing a game of that at this very moment.
Yeah,
what do you think you would open with here?
That's I was about to ask you. What are your early priorities here?
So on a 4-3, I think I'm getting Bridge Silver because I want to hit 5 and I kind of want to hit 7. So my first 5, I guess I would aim for Haunted Woods and hope to spike a 7 for an Expand with that, and then start thinning my estates, get Haunted Woods online, spam villages, pick up an Ironworks later, that kind of thing.
I'm probably going for Ironworks Silver. I want to get an Ironworks Silver because if I can get to the situation where I have a bridge and an Ironworks in play and I can start Ironworks in crowns, I'm in real good shape. But
I mean, I want that.
Yeah,
but
I want
I don't
that
think
too.
that's a compelling reason to open with the Ironworks.
Well, I
think that's a compelling reason to get the Ironworks soon.
I want the Ironworks in the deck is the other thing. I want the Ironworks because I want to be getting all these deck components.
Right, so I have the same school of thought, only I'm like, I want the bridge in the deck eventually, and the bridge is going to help me more immediately, so I'm going to get that first.
Is it? I think
it
might.
I don't think either opening is crazy. I think it's close, but I think I prefer the bridge.
Yeah.
And I'm prepared to be wrong about that.
So what we're really arguing about here is what's better early. Yeah. Is getting multiple 4s better early, or is spiking up to 5/7, 7 if it's possible.
5
early.
In order to spike 7 more.
Yeah, I mean, and both of those are pretty good. I mean, with no thinning, you might be right that the 5s are going to be more impactful than having a bunch of villages. And,
so, the school of thought is I'm either prioritizing the thinning aspect, because I need to draw cards to effectively thin here.
Sure.
So I'm prioritizing draw in order to effectively thin. And you're prioritizing gaining, which is another thing you care about in the early game.
Yeah.
So the quality of each of those, the whole prioritizing draw to get thinning, is super jank, and maybe I don't want to invest in that right away.
Yeah.
So I don't think either is crazy. I prefer the bridge. Could be wrong. What do you think of opening with a native village instead of the silver?
Okay, so native village instead of the silver... is definitely telegraphing that you are going for something very specific, I think. I think if you do that, you're saying, I'm going native village bridge, try and stop me. And
so you're saying that's only good for a native village bridge deck?
I don't know why you'd open with the native village other than that.
I think it's not good. I just want to hear your take on it.
I don't think I would do it.
I don't think I want to open with the native village. On a 5/2, I guess I would put the native village in the deck. I would be very sad because I think I'm opening with a Haunted Woods in that case, and that doesn't play nice with the native village, but I guess I'm still going to do it. Haunted Woods is orange.
On a 5/2...
Crown and Crypt are just bad to open with.
On a 5/2, I might take Crypt Moat.
You would open with a Crypt?
Possibly. I'd think about it. So, the Crypt is doing decent things for me close to the beginning of the game, because I'm very reliably lining it up with multiple treasures, and then having this... Once I do draw the Crypt,
So the reason I don't like Crypt, not to say you're wrong, but the reason I don't like it is because it makes you $0, and it's very unlikely to help your turn 3 and turn 4.
Yeah,
it's more likely to do more damage to those turns than it is to help it.
Yeah.
Haunted Woods has the same issue, which is why I'm not enthused about opening with it.
Yeah.
But at least it's a card I want in my deck before I want the Crypt. Because in my ideal build, I'm drawing a lot with Haunted Woods, and then I put the Crypt in, and then I'm able to line things up.
On a 5/2, you might just say I'm sad and go Ironworks native village or bridge native village. On a 5/2, maybe the bridge native village is a little more reasonable.
Definitely agree with the sadness.
I mean, I don't think
you
could take a crown.
That's so bad.
It's bad, but
so bad.
The crown is a card you really want in the deck eventually.
Yeah, but
you definitely it doesn't do.
You're opening Throne Room and you're opening Copper. It feels so bad. Yeah,
so,
I'm very sad in that case.
I think we can both agree that
5/2
is bad.
I'm not sure if it's best.
Oh man, the Haunted Woods is probably fine. I mean, it's more likely to help you get an expand early for sure. So I think we can both agree that Native Village hard counters Bureaucrat.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty ill.
Yeah. Okay, so on a serious note, do you care about the fountain points?
It's 15 points, man. I'm not gonna bother thinning the coppers when I can just shove 3 of them in the deck at some point and get 15 points. I care about them. I'm not going to get them every game. I care about them every game.
So yeah, no, obviously you don't ignore that they're there, but do you... I guess you answered my question. Do you play around them to the point that, are you really not going to thin copper?
That goes into every endgame calculation I make. How many coppers does my opponent need? Do they have the extra gains to do it?
Okay.
And that enters into the calculations of, can my opponent win the game on their next turn, or can I win the opponent? Or can I win the opponent? Can I win the game doing this?
Okay, so you get 1 dominate and you make up for the fountain points. So if you thin the coppers and it helps you get a dominate, you wouldn't have gotten... I'm not saying that that's the case, but if it is, then it's worth thinning the coppers. If it helps you... Whereas if you're not getting a dominate... then how many provinces do you need to get that you wouldn't have gotten? It's 3.
I don't think the comparison is that simple.
Well, no, it's not.
Because
I'm just thinking
the amount
about
of work it takes to thin coppers is different than the amount of work it takes to add 3 coppers and get the fountain points, right?
Very true. I'm just trying to think of like what do you need to justify ignoring the fountain points? And if you're going for a dominate, you just need to be able to hit it once because you thinned coppers. If you are not dominating,
no, I think you need to be able to do that more than once. Because
Sure.
the fountain deck can do things besides gain 3 coppers with all that work you did, right?
That's true, but you're also like gaining cards off the thinning.
Right.
So, but like if you're not dominating, you need to basically get 3 more provinces because you thinned those coppers, which is not crazy, but it's hard.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is interesting talk. Let us know what you think in the comments about how much you play around the fountain points.
Or all of what we talked about with this kingdom.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, would you get a Crypt here? I think
it has a place in the deck.
Probably in the middle of the game.
I think it definitely has a place in the deck.
Yeah.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment in the comment section. We'll be happy to see that. We see those. We respond to those. If you are on YouTube or you're listening to this through some other medium, you can head on over to adamhorton.com. There are links there to a forum, a Discord server that you can hop on, or all of our contact information. Yeah. Get in touch with us. Let us know what you think about the kingdom, the podcast, anything, what you want to hear next, anything that we've mentioned, if you think we got something wrong, or if you just think we're great and you want to tell us about it, or if you're going to go to the Dominion tournament that I am holding on January 12th, 2019 at 1 p.m. near Cincinnati, Ohio. If you're coming, I would love to know about it. If you're traveling in, let me know so that if you're running late, if it snows a little bit where you're coming from, or if you get stuck in traffic or pulled over for speeding, which has happened, I am able to accommodate you if you're not going to be that late. I don't want you to drive that far and then not be able to play all of your games. I want you to have fun. I want you to come to the tournament. I hope you'll have a good time. I've put in a lot of work, designed kingdoms, etc. You should totally do it. I think that's all the shameless plugs I have.
Yeah, I can back it up. Adam's tournaments are fun. You should come.
Yep. Parker is. Can you grab the webcam and put it on Parker's face here? The face he's making. He is entering into milk coma.
Wait, how do I?
That's the burp cloth.
How am I?
So you point it at Parker. You can
there
use
we go.
There we go. Yeah, look at that. That's a face. Anyway, thanks for listening to Making Luck, my Dominion podcast.
With all 3 of your hosts. 4, sorry.
So there's one of these songs, not this one. There's one of these songs that I want to play for the podcast.
Okay.
But he has to... This one. Okay. So, that song... he'll be fine.
It's like, what
That song. Listeners, what is that song? Now, I have some ideas. Oh, okay, we want the sound. Alright, we want the sound. Sorry, kiddo.
I was gonna say, man.
We have a couple ideas. When I first heard it, I thought a thing, and then I'm like, is that it? And then I thought, oh, well, maybe it's another thing, and so I want to hear what you all think. What song is that? And raffle
clearly.
or something. You win the baby piano thing if you get it right or something.
If you get selected for the raffle, you get to take the baby.
But you have to get the right answer to the song.
Right.
Yeah.
And win the raffle.
Yeah. Raffle, song, something.
Yeah.